All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Second Avenue podcast. This is our first episode. I'm your host, Jonathon Elijah.
I'm your other host, Elijah Venencia. We're gonna start off with just brief introductions for ourselves. I'm currently a sophomore in college, 20 years old, marketing major. I'm gonna pass it on to my co-host, Jonathan.
All right, so I'm Jonathon Elijah. As I mentioned, I'm 23 years old. I'm a student at Illinois State University, where I'm getting my master's in business administration. Graduated from there in 2020 with my degree in marketing. Always been a music lover. Always want to start a podcast. Elijah mentioned this, so I thought it was finally time to get started. What made you want to get the podcast started?
I mean, it's just kind of, we've been grinding Fortnite a little bit with that being back.
Yes,
and just those conversations, I was like, why not share the knowledge with everybody else, or share, how we're feeling with everybody else.
Exactly. I've always loved talk music, so always been looking for that perfect time to start the podcast, and kind of looks like now's the time. You mentioned it, and I was like, it's perfect. We've been, like you said, we've been playing. We've been talking Kanye. We've been talking, Travis. Is Travis still canceled? Is he not canceled? Those conversations. I think people would like to hear what we got to say on that. So I think now's the perfect time. You want to tell the people a little bit about why we're Second Avenue? What made us go with that name? So
Second Avenue, it's obviously got a lot of history for Jonathan and I. We used to, pretty much how I got into music, started listening to music. He had his iPod Touch there at my grandmother's house on Second Avenue. We'd just be playing music on that all the time. I ended up getting one. We'd play games on there, and then music as well. So that's kind of significance behind it.
Yep. I like Second Avenue beyond it just being a physical location in our lives. It's kind of that overarching term, Second Avenue. It's our Second Avenue. This is our, second thing. It's not necessarily our full-time thing yet. So hopefully one day it could be, but hey, we'll see.
Yeah. Big yes there.
But yeah, Second Avenue kind of felt like I was stolen from Brockhampton a little bit because, they're Brockhampton named after Kevin Abstract's street he grew up on. So, Second Avenue, we didn't grow up there, but, we kind of did at the same time.
R.I.P. Brockhampton. We'll get into that later.
R.I.P. Brockhampton.
Had to throw it in there.
More in the sweatshirt and everything today. I knew we were going to talk about it, so we had to get there. But yeah. So now I guess we can talk a little bit about what the people can expect to see from us in our content moving forward.
Definitely. I think, initially we're going to start off with a list today, and then, but just music news, album reviews, other lists, top 5 albums, ranking discographies. We're also going to try and get some games in there, not games, but little questions where we can guess the song and everything. So
oh yeah, I'm a big trivia kid. Grew up playing scholastic football in elementary school and middle school. Stopped that when I got to high school. Realized it was not the coolest move, but hey, here we are. So I love some trivia, so I'll always be throwing some questions at you. Trust me, I got one in store for you today. I think it's gonna stump you. So we'll see. All right.
We'll see how that goes.
All right, Elijah, you ready to get into today's topic?
I am. And just before we start, this is in no particular order, by the way. It's just 5 artists.
Yep.
I don't know if I could rank them, but
it's hard.
I'm saving myself the trouble today.
It's like ranking your kids. You know what I mean? Parents say they don't have a favorite. I don't believe it.
I think you trump Lauren, but
I definitely do. We'll get her on an episode. She can talk about that. We'll see. Anyway, so today we're talking about our 5 favorite artists of all time in no particular order, like Elijah said. But first, we're going to start off with some honorable mentions. Elijah, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, so we each did 4 honorable mentions. My 4 are Dr. Dre, Big Sean, Mac Miller, and Kid Cudi.
Some great choices in there. Dr. Dre, that's my twin. We share the same birthday. Shout to him. Big Sean, obviously he got some hits back in the day. Growing up with him in middle school, I was loving some Big Sean. I'll move on to my honorable mentions here. Frank Ocean, the man can do no wrong. It's been a while since he's dropped. Maybe if he had an album, he'd make my list. Vince Staples, been listening to his music since about 2015. Been a big fan. Love he's a great rapper. Earl Sweatshirt, another phenomenal rapper. Some of the best writing in the game. Tremendous production. And then lastly, I put Drake. Drake, not as much of a traditional rapper as the other people I mentioned, excluding Frank, of course. But he's just been popular for so long, been a big part of the reason why I became such a big fan of music in general. But I haven't really connected with too many of his recent releases as much as I have with other artists. So that's why he missed my list.
Okay. Good choices, of course.
Sure.
So with Jonathan finishing on Drake there, he actually did make my 5,
I respect it. I can't.
So I
knock
mean,
that.
obviously Drake, the 35-year-old Toronto rapper. I mean, in my opinion, he's the biggest rapper on this list.
I mean, I would say he's maybe the biggest artist in the world.
Yeah,
So
I wanted to throw that in
a
there as
cold
well.
take.
Yeah. But like you said, I mean, with his last few projects, I felt that, I'm sure most people agree on that if they fuck with older Drake a little bit more. But
Facts.
so when I became a fan, it was a Take Care era, through songs like HYFR and The Motto. I'd always heard like Up All Night and Best I Ever Had, but like Take Care made me, go to YouTube on the laptop and listen. The reason why I became a fan, he was just like such a prominent figure. I can't think of what year he did didn't he do a celebrity all-star game?
Oh, he might have. I don't remember.
He does have the NBA influence there with the Raptors, or
definitely
maybe a Lakers fan now, or
he's all
whoever's
over.
winning, how Drizzy is.
Whoever's losing, the Drake curse.
Yeah. But I mean, basically why, I mean, it was through you a lot and like your friends, I just want to feel like a cool kid, banging Drake. So
that just touches my heart.
And then the song I chose, we chose a song for each one that we'll transition into here in a little bit. But the song I chose was Look What You've Done off Take Care. Just an amazing Drake song, fits many different moods. Kind of explains Drake as an artist a little bit, with tracks like, he has his Heaters, HYFR, The Motto, but he also has his, songs you could just vibe to, songs like that. So
definitely a great Drake song. Take Care, by far my favorite Drake project. So, I mean, that's definitely one of the standouts on there as well. I do want to mention right now for the listeners, Spotify is going to be the best place to listen to Second Avenue podcast. Spotify has a great feature for their podcast where we're able to put songs in the middle of our episode. So if we're talking about Look What You've Done, for example, we can put that in the episode and you can listen to it right away. It's a great way so that you can be up to date with what we're talking about. But not to take anything away, we'll also be on YouTube and everywhere else. So you can still listen there. All right. I'll move on here to my first artist. I chose Chance the Rapper. If you know me, Chance the Rapper is obviously one of my favorite artists. I got the 3 hats. I was really big into him, especially around that 2016 era. For those of you who aren't familiar with Chance, I feel like most people probably are, but Chance is a 28-year-old rapper from Chicago who started to gain mainstream attention after his mixtape Acid Rap. Before that, he also dropped a mixtape called 10 Day when he got suspended from school. I became a fan of Chance in 2013. I started enjoying his music, really. I heard like Juice for the first time, and I was like, wow, this guy, he has some really unique flows, really good production. I thought he was a really interesting rapper. I hadn't heard anything really like him before. But it was really Coloring Book that really made me such a big fan of him. I remember I was on my senior trip to Six Flags when he dropped No Problem with 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne, and I was like, this is different. I was like, okay, he's working with some of the biggest rappers now. I mean, obviously, previously he'd worked with some pretty popular rappers as well, but 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne in 2016, those are 2 of the top.
That's kind of like his coming out party for sure.
Absolutely. So I was pretty excited for that. That was on a Thursday, and then he dropped Coloring Book that Friday. So I was pretty excited to get to listen to that. I actually made my mom buy Apple Music for my family because it was an Apple Music exclusive, and I couldn't just buy it with like iTunes money or whatever. So I needed Apple Music. I needed to listen to that mixtape, looking at why I became a fan, I really loved how Chance was just independent. He was doing everything by himself with the help of his team. I thought that was pretty cool. He didn't have a label backing him. It was really great to see, especially for me wanting to work in the music industry after I graduate here. It was really cool to see what he was able to accomplish without the help of that label and with just his team, like I mentioned. The song I wanted to put the people onto today is Acid Rain. Acid Rain is just such an introspective, great track from Chance, talking about a lot going on. But I wanted to have a trivia question for you. This is one of my first ones for the day.
All right, let's hear it.
Did you know Chance had projects before 10 Day?
I did not know.
Okay.
Are they SoundCloud or
yeah, they're SoundCloud, YouTube. These are pretty hard to track down these days, but they were released under the name Instrumentality. Actually, it was with his friend Justin. He released 2 projects called Back to School and Good Enough. And that takes me to one of my favorite lines on Acid Rain. Chance says, "Mom still thinks I should go back to school, but Justin still think I'm good enough." And that just named both of his projects while talking about, his life. His mom wants him to go back to school because his rap thing's not so certain, but Justin still thinks he's good enough because that's his friend's been with him since the beginning. I love that line.
Yeah,
really shows where Chance has come from and has how he has potential to keep going forward.
Definitely. I mean, he's getting, after the big day, is that Kanye video. That's probably my favorite video on the internet. No diss to your boy, but
no, I agree. I mean, I'll be as biased as I could be about Chance, be like, oh, it's still really good. The big day, not so good. That's why album flopped.
What NBA team was posting with Chance after they beat Chicago? Was it Memphis where they
it was the
L?
Grizzlies?
Yeah.
It was the Grizzlies. They put the L on the 3 hat.
Disrespectful.
They're disrespecting Chicago, man. It's tough to see. Hey, but the Bulls looking good this year.
Yes, they are. Shout out ILL.
INI. All right, you want to lead us here into the second your second artist?
So my second artist is Lil Peep. A little bit about him.
Okay.
Would be 24-year-old kind of like entrepreneur into the emo rap scene. RIP first off, I had that in my notes there. I had to get it off, but
RIP Lil Peep.
Long Island raised, although his music took off more in LA, introduced completely different sounds and styles into music. When I became a fan, it was 2017, my sophomore year, after he had died, seeing a couple pages post him or, the RIP Lil Peep, it kind of like, who is this guy and everything. So I started listening a little bit off that, like songs like Save That Shit and Ben's Truck, two of his bigger tracks at the time.
For sure.
That transitioned me into listening to him on SoundCloud, actually, speaking of SoundCloud with Chance there.
Yeah.
But projects like Crybaby and Hellboy became my favorites. And then, he became one of my favorite artists whenever he dropped Come Over When You're Sober Part 2, first posthumous album. Or great album though. It's part 1 and part 2. It's so hard to choose between.
I love part 1.
I think part 2 is part 1 put me on, but I think part 2 it's creeping up on it.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, Lil Peep, he's such an interesting story because, I mean, like you said, you listened to him after he died, and that's crazy because I'm sure there's so many other people that are like that. They didn't have the chance to listen to it when he was alive. Lil Peep, I'm kind of surprised by the pick, but I think it's a great choice. I mean, I became a fan of Peep. I started listening probably in about 2016. I actually got put on. There's a YouTuber named Cam Haller. He's a channel called Cuff Boys. If you've seen him, he does like the different mom reacts videos. One of his earlier videos was actually mom reacts to Lil Peep. He played a couple of Lil Peep songs for his mom. She actually kind of liked them, and it was a pretty viral video. It was cool, and that's actually how I found out about him. That video showed up in my suggested one day, and I was like, I got to see what this lyrics of Lil Peep, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. I feel like parents listening to him would be like, whoa, like, just because his lyrics are pretty emotional and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely real. I mean, he seems like he was like foreshadowing his death. He knew what was going on.
Yeah, that's crazy. Listening to songs sometimes, I'm like, damn. Always put like Juice, X, and Lil Peep, as like the first 3 that you kind of hit with the emo rap, genre. So
definitely.
And all 3 are gone. It's
crazy to see. They were living an unsustainable lifestyle. it was just like couldn't happen for too long. They were, besides X, obviously X, that's unfortunate what happened to him, but Juice and Peep, those 2 were just
the lifestyle
hit a little too hard.
Yeah. On to why I became a fan. For Lil Peep, it was just, he had a very interesting sound. He wasn't an alternative artist, but he also wasn't a rapper to me. He was definitely a good mix between the 2. And I mean, with those 2 being my 2 favorite music genres, it's kind of a given he'd make the list. So. The song I chose is You Said. I think it perfectly explains Peep as an artist. It's got a very smooth intro before the bridge into a rock-like second half, with the sometimes life gets fucked up. That's why we get fucked up. When you're screaming, that's more of a rock, versus, associating with rap. So
yeah, definitely. I love a good transition to song, and that's one of my favorites ever. So it's a great choice.
And then with his just something interesting we included within, he personally for me as my favorite music documentary I've seen. It's actually on Netflix, Everybody's Everything. Go check it out if you guys get the chance.
I think I'd agree. I think it's my favorite also. It's such a good look at what made Peep unique and what made him such a pioneer in the rap game. if you would consider him a part of the rap game, which I would personally, just because
Yeah, no, I
so many
associate more.
influences.
Definitely.
All right, so now I'll talk about my second artist I chose, which is Childish Gambino. You might know him as Donald Glover. Childish Gambino is his stage name. He's a 38-year-old actor, writer, director, producer, singer, rapper. You name it, he's done it basically. He's been in TV shows like 30 Rock, Community, and now his own show in Atlanta. He's also starred in movies like Solo, a Star Wars story, and Spider-Man Homecoming. His music career started out with early mixtapes like Sick Boy, I Am Just a Rapper, 1 and 2, and then Cul-de-sac. Those were kind of low-key. They didn't really get too much exposure, especially critical acclaim. They were kind of just whatever. People weren't really loving them too much. But this really changed with his sophomore album, Because the Internet, was dropped in 2013. One of my favorite albums of all time, such an innovative album. It was nominated for Rap Album of the Year.
Amazing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
no,
you.
You're all
3005
good.
is
3005.
Amazing song.
Great song. Definitely the biggest song off that album, but deservingly so. It's so good. But yeah, like I said, he was nominated for the Rap Album of the Year at the Grammys. And it seems like he's not so interested in the rap career anymore. He's kind of focused on his film career, which, I totally get. He's a star in that lane. So definitely understand why he's doing it, but I would be welcome to any Childish Gambino music I get, especially since his music has, evolved so much from that early rap, that mixtape style. He's really gone more into a different lane with projects like Awaken My Love and even 31520, which dropped 2020.
Definitely. Another interesting part, kind of, with him transitioning to more of an actor than a musician. Like another one of my artists, it's kind of lived that not double life, but where they have multiple avenues that they can go through. Would you do that if, say you're a big artist? Would you pursue maybe a basketball career, acting career?
Okay, that's a little foreshadowing. Some of these rappers, they have such like an influence on the culture and such like a pull that they can kind of do whatever they want to an extent. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
If Drake wanted to pitch the MLB, he probably could for the Blue Jays. He's just that big to the city, and the tickets would sell. They might lose the game, but
I have a great quote for it later. I'm gonna save it, but
okay.
It's tough to save it, but I have a great quote that I'll pull out later once we get to my artist.
Another one. Recently Dominic Fike, I wouldn't really consider him a rapper, but he's starring in Euphoria right now, and he's doing a pretty great job, I'd have to admit. Have you watched Euphoria?
I have not yet. I have not. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate in the comments on that, but
man, you got to get on it. It's pretty good. It's pretty wild. Don't want to give too much away. If you're gonna watch it, so definitely check it out. Everybody's watching. Let us know in the comments what you're thinking about Dominic Fike.
Euphoria episode coming soon.
Euphoria episode coming soon. We could definitely do an episode all about the music in that show. They're killing it with the soundtracks. But then, so moving on for when I became a fan of Childish Gambino, it was around the Because the Internet era. I think I had just found out about the song 3005 or Sweatpants, one of those two songs, and I was like, wow, this guy's crazy. I got to go listen to that album. And it just got nominated for the Grammy, like I mentioned. So I was like, okay, I really, really got to get in on this guy. I became a fan because he has such unique wordplay and flows and really good production. His guy Ludwig really does a great job on production. And I also really like how much how much effort he puts into the projects, especially like Because the Internet. He came out with a full 72-page screenplay to accompany the album that told the story of the album. And it was crazy.
You love that little extra touch with artists, whether it's foreshadowing the album coming or just, things like that. You go crazy for it once it's happening, for sure.
Exactly. I love all the little touches. Like there, you said foreshadowing an album. That makes me think of IDK, obviously one of my guys. We could do a full episode about him. We could do
we'll get
10 episodes about him.
Yeah.
But man, his album, You See for Yourself, he foreshadowed that by his Is He Real album. The last letter of every song spelled out You See for Yourself. Last or first, actually, I can't remember. One of the letters is spelled out. I was like, wow, it's
deep. He was thinking
ahead on that one.
He is a couple steps ahead of everybody.
Yeah, he's plotting.
There we go.
So then back to Childish Gambino here. The song I chose was actually Sweatpants. I think Sweatpants is a great song as an introduction to Childish Gambino. He really talks about wealth. The song is actually titled Sweatpants because it talks about how rich people could show up to a black tie event wearing sweatpants and nobody would say anything because they're so well off. and respected. But if you weren't so well off and you show up in sweatpants, people would be like, what's this guy doing? Get out of here. You know, like they wouldn't respect you at all. But if Jay-Z went to, the Met Gala in sweatpants, it'd be like, oh man, that's drip, that's fashion,
Yeah, that's like that's kind of like back to the point of, if say I'm going on this set to act on Atlanta or a Star Wars movie, people are gonna look at me twice. But
Exactly.
Childish does it. It's
he's Donald, yeah,
yeah,
just Donald being Donald.
Definitely.
So my second trivia question of the day for you is, do you know which NBA player's house because the internet was recorded in?
I do not actually. I have no clue on that one.
Okay. It's actually Miami Heat star Chris Bosh.
I should have known that one being a Heat
I know
fan.
you're a Heat boy. Thought you'd get that.
That's one of the big three there, but yeah, I had no clue, honestly. I wouldn't even associate those two together.
I know. I don't think they really had a connection, but it was just his house was available. So,
yeah.
So Donald took him up or rented it from whoever. It's actually featured in the short film to accompany the album called Clapping for the Wrong Reasons on YouTube. Features like Trinidad James and Chance and a lot of people. Pretty cool short film to go with the album. But that takes me to one of my favorite lines off the song Sweatpants. On this track, Gambino says, I got a penthouse on both coasts, pH balance. I love that line because pH balance, pH, penthouse, pH balance, obviously the scale. And, he needs to balance out the penthouses. So he's got one on each coast. That's pretty interesting to me, as well as it could be a nod to pH being the Palisades and the Hamptons, because the house called the Temple where they recorded the album was in the Palisades. And then the other coast would be the Hamptons on the East Coast. So I thought that's a pretty cool line. Also, you got some classics like You Faker Than from Sweet and Low. That's just like, that's just a bar.
Yeah, that's lyrically he's amazing.
Yeah, he's just such a creative guy that he's always gonna have these one-liners that just make you think.
When do you think we'll ever get in there Gambino project?
Who, man, I can only hope so.
Yeah, obviously that's the hope, but I didn't realize he was 38.
I know that I didn't either. When I was researching this, I was like, man, because then I was starting to think like, I became a fan in 2013 or whatever. He was already getting kind of old. I was like, Like,
yeah,
he was already over 30.
Can't tell.
30.
There's no way you could have asked me before today who's older, Drake or Childish Gambino. I would have told you Drake.
Really,
100 times.
I would have still thought Gambino, but I wouldn't have thought he was that much older than Drake. So it's pretty interesting. I do think we'll get another album. I just can only hope so because I really want to see him on tour. I wanted to go to Lollapalooza when he was there, 2 or 3 years ago now, but I was like, I'll see him again on one of his own tours. So we'll do a little more unique stage layout, and his set list would probably be a little bit more curated for his individual concert than Lala would be. So I was like, wait, who knows? I'll get that chance now. So we'll see.
Definitely. Hopefully, that's it's the plan.
Definitely. All right. Well, you want to start us off here with your next artist?
All right, I may get some heat for this. I don't know if he's still canceled or not. I don't know if he just redeemed himself last week, but number 3 for me is going to be Travis Scott. The 29-year-old Houston rapper has ties all throughout rap. He's frequently collaborating with, loads of artists or even different brands, When I became a fan of Travis, it was 2015 through the song Antidote. I remember one night, I can't remember who played it. It was Jared or Anthony, and they played it. And they just kept playing it and kept playing it and kept playing it the night before a football game. We're just listening to that on repeat. So, that's always a classic. That just makes me think of Travis Scott, honestly.
It definitely is. That's the first song I heard also. It's just such a good song. I remember listening to it when I was in high school, and I played it for Chalky, and me and Chalky were talking about it, and he was like, I don't like the rap verse, like the second rap verse. I was like, what do you mean? That's like the best part of the song.
With that, just began listening to Rodeo. You got songs like 3500 and 90210. So great songs on the album. And then once Birds released, that's kind of when I took everything in with Trav. After that, he started doing things with Nike and everything. So definitely up there.
Definitely. I remember when Birds dropped, I was a freshman in college. I'd just been to college. I think it came out in September 2016. I was doing laundry actually as it was premiering on the Beats One station, I believe, on Apple Music. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so good. I remember that was the first time I heard Biebs in the Trap with Nav. I had never heard of Nav before.
I was gonna mention that was my first introduction to Nav. You know, your favorite rapper's favorite rapper.
Your favorite rapper,
Shout out
favorite
Childish
rappers.
Gambino. You know.
Yep. Childish Gambino, we'll give him an episode that now.
Yeah, we'll get you
coming
your
soon.
Nav episode
Coming soon. But yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, Travis is one of those artists that is just so embedded in the culture at this point that it's, you know, kind of hard to match that with all his collaborations you're talking about. Do you have a favorite one of his collaborations?
Musically, or we'll do one of each, you know, musically and
okay.
Then, so with music, I didn't like the album as much, you know, there were still some hits on there, but I loved when he did a track with Quavo, you know, because he's got a Oh My Diss Side with Quavo, you know, him and Huncho are pretty tight. So I like their album, but I was expecting more. I will say that from Huncho Jack Huncho.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of, I'm a little bit of a sneakerhead as well. So I mean, in terms of like a sneaker collab, I think I got to go with the one. I have the Air Force ones he has, the Travis collabs. I love those, but I still think the Jordan ones with him with the backwards swoosh, that's just
those
fire.
Are different. Those are such like I love neutral colored shoes like those. You can wear with anything. Those are special.
Yeah, I mean, it just sucks. They're like $2,000 now. I probably have a pair.
Might have to buy some reps. Just kidding. We don't support that. Second Avenue podcast does not support reps. If you are reps, click off.
Funny enough, on the reps, I always get like TikTok reps in my feed and everything. I just block the page immediately. I'm like, I never want to see you again, you rat.
I respect that. Hey, follow us on TikTok at Second Avenue Pod as well. We're posting some content on there coming soon. I'll mention my favorite collabs quickly. Favorite collab musically, I think him and The Weeknd. I would kill for a collab album from those two.
Wake Up is just
Wake Up, so good. Skeletons, you know, Pray for Love. Those songs are just crazy. Would love a full album from those two one day. But then on the brand collaboration side, I mean, it's got to be the Jordans, the Jordan 4s, Family and Friends, the purple ones. Have you seen those?
Ooh, yes. Those are fire.
Those are different. I love my guy PJ Tucker pulling up in those to a game. It's just casual for him. He's got every shoe in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think without what Trav does, like with you know, Jordan Brand, or I even love the McDonald's collab. That was so cool. Like, I don't think without what he does with all those collaborations with all these brands, I don't think he makes my list. But you know, since he's got that Jordan Brand influence, you know, had to show some love. Yeah,
I mean, as great as he is musically, he's
on the same level
outside of that.
Yeah,
he's arguably the biggest rapper as it comes to collaborations with brands. So it's pretty great to have him in the list.
What's your stance on the whole Astro world?
Ooh, I mean, it's just such a sad loss for those that lost their lives that day. I mean, I don't know how much more Travis could have done. You know, I mean, it's obviously very tough to see from his perspective. I mean, he was on that stage with the headphones on. I also heard somewhere that he didn't even have the rights to end the concert.
Yeah.
Only the showrunner and I think somebody from Live Nation were the only people that had permission to end a concert early. So even if he wanted to, he probably could not. I mean, he could have left the stage. He probably got like sued by them or something. But I mean, obviously would have been preferred to do that over losing their lives.
Definitely.
But I mean, you know,
definitely. I mean, crazy enough, I was at Rolling Loud, New York with Travis performing there, you know, the weekend before. So that was crazy. You know, that's crazy timing, but the crowds there are just crazy. You know, it's just, I mean, it's not much the artist can do once you have, you know, being in that crowd. And even for artists like Kodak Black or, you know, Ski Mask. And then, I mean, anybody you ask, they'll say Trav's pits are on a different level. So, I mean,
100%.
even artists like those, it was just too crazy. It was the crowd, you know, just the people all from the back pushing you in. And it's just
definitely. I mean, there's like 80,000 people there in those crowds too. So it's crazy. I mean, I saw Travis back in 2017 at the Bird's Eye View tour, and it was him and Khalid. And Khalid came out first, obviously, and opened for him. But before Khalid even came out, people were pushing, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is about to be something else."
Yeah, it's different.
People are moshing for Khalid. My man is singing about his broken heart on a guitar, and people were trying to mosh, and I'm like, "Oh god, this is different."
That was
it was crazy.
People were Lil TJ was performing in New York, and it was like calling my phone. People were trying to open up the pits and like jump. I was like, huh? What?
Yeah,
what are we doing
no
here?
Sense. What are they doing? But it was crazy.
My last little line on Trav. Shout out Trav for getting Kanye the Addy to Chicago's party. You know, had to come through for the bro-in-law. So did he redeem himself with that? It's undecided so far, but
man, that's just a great move. If you're hooking up your brother-in-law with Yeah, just for his daughter's birthday. I mean, you got to do
The
that.
W. I
It's
mean,
his daughter's birthday.
that's pushing P there.
Pushing P. Well, we'll touch on that later with a little rap news, but it's a foreshadowing. All right, let's move on to my next artist. I chose Tyler, the Creator, as one of my top 5 favorite artists of all time. For those of you who are not familiar with him, he's a 30-year-old rapper and producer from LA. He came up with Odd Future, who featured Earl Sweatshirt and Frank Ocean and more in the 2010s. He really used to capitalize off shock rap, is what a lot of people would say. He had a lot of lines that would just make headlines about, doing stuff with a pregnant girl. Tell my friends I had a threesome, I'm not, we don't want to get canceled here off that like he did, but yeah, some pretty crazy lines. But he's really matured as his career has advanced. He's really gotten more into a pop appeal and critical acclaim with those last couple albums. I mean, Flower Boy and Igor and Call Me If You Get Lost are some of the biggest albums of the years they released, not just in rap and all of music. I mean, he got a Grammy off of Igor, and he's nominated off of Call Me If You Get Lost. I mean, we'll see what happens.
He's definitely making that transition into a star versus, early in his career where he'd have these out there lyrics,
Absolutely.
I mean, still the same Tyler, of course, but
yeah, it's kind of all about maturing. Like I said, I mean, he was just a kid when he was making those songs early, you know what I mean? And now he's 30 years old, much more matured, much more refined sound. He knows who he is as a person, and he's able to perform that in his lyrics.
The Odd Future, that kind of do you see like the ESPN post like the AAU teams where it's got like all these young NBA stars on there, like back in the day? That's kind of Odd Future with, with their collabs and everything.
It kind of is. I mean, Frank,
shout out my guy Levi. He'd always be rocking the Odd Future tees in high school. So shout out my boy.
I'll shout the Chalky on that. Chalky had the Vans with the donuts on them. Different. So how I became a fan of Tyler. This is actually a pretty good story. The way I found out about Tyler, the Creator, was through the song Martians versus Goblins by The Game. Tyler was featured on that song along with Lil Wayne. I remember it was 2011, I think. So I was 13, and just on YouTube one day, and it was on the homepage, and I was like, oh, what's this? I got to check it out. I think it was the day the video came out, actually. I was like, this guy's crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
I was looking to the song more for Lil Wayne because at that time I was a really big Lil Wayne fan. Lil Wayne barely had a feature in that song, just a couple of lines, but Tyler killed it. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. I got to listen to some more of his music. So I found songs like Yonkers, all that. So really became more of a fan from there. But I mean, my fandom of Tyler really just bumped up when I became friends with Chalky. Shout out to my boy Chalky. He's a huge Tyler fan, especially growing up. I feel like he's moved off a little bit. He's kind of gone a different direction with his taste, but he loved those early Tyler albums. So we were always bumping those and we'd hang out.
The what's the track he has with Mac Miller? I think that may have been my introduction. Okay, on watching movies with the sound off.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that once you first hear him, you're like, who is this guy?
Exactly.
Like
he's like everything.
He's got a very
like
interesting sound.
Exactly.
Yeah,
everything he does like an earworm. You just want to get a little taste from it. You're like, I got to get more. I need that. It gets stuck in your head. You're like, he just said something that I'm never going to forget. Like,
yeah.
So then why I became a fan of Tyler, I just love those songs. Like I said, like Yonkers and She and Colossus on those early projects. And then I kind of found out about who Tyler was as a person outside of music with things like Loiter Squad, and his Twitter was just a different breed. I mean, he was tweeting some out of pocket stuff back in the day.
He wouldn't be able to do that nowadays.
He would have no career, but at this point, uncancelable. There, I said it. But yeah, I just became such a fan of him as a person and then his music, obviously. And like I said, it's come so far. When Igor dropped, that was like the craziest album first listen for me. I was like, this is nothing like anything he's done before, and really not like much I've ever heard before. I mean, it was just such a unique sound, such a unique approach from Tyler. We used to those raps. Now he's doing that much more melodic synth inspired sound, and it was just so good. I listened to Igor 7 times the day it came out. That's how much I love it. I'll remember that. I'll never forget that. I spent like 5 or 6 hours listening to that album, and it's crazy. It's one of my favorites of all time. Such a good album, such a complete story. Makes it one of my favorites. So the song I chose for the people to listen to today would be Smuckers. Smuckers is a song off of Tyler's album Cherry Bomb, which came out in 2015. And this is another one. This is just such a nostalgic song for me because I remember it came out when I was a junior in high school, and me and Chalky, that was like, we're 17 or whatever, so only had our licenses for like a year, and Chalky be driving around listening to that album. And we didn't love every song on the album, I don't think, at the time. I think it's one that's really grown on me, and I still don't like some songs, like Keep the O's, but some songs have grown on me so much, like Find Your Wings and Okaka, California. Those songs are just such great songs musically that they've really grown on me. But Smuckers, that was the one that just stuck with us on the first listen. I mean, it features Kanye and Lil Wayne, and when you get two of those artists on your song, man, the magic.
Yeah, you're in for a banger at that point. You got
exactly. And I mean, there's actually a documentary that came out about Cherry Bomb. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on YouTube on the channel Legal Civilization. Pretty cool. It shows like the making of like most of the songs on the album and just some stuff that was going on behind the scenes when it came out. Kanye was featured in, and he actually had to rewrite his verse because Lil Wayne and Tyler did such a good job that he was like, man,
I'm
I
not
gotta
gonna let these dudes show me up.
Yeah,
like Kanye
attitude.
Kanye.
Yeah. But man, such a good song.
All right, transitioning into my fourth artist is gonna be J. Cole, Jermaine.
Jermaine.
Shout out RDC World, that hilarious video.
Classic.
The 36-year-old Dreamville rapper. He made his name off early projects like The Warm Up and Friday Night Lights before becoming a hip hop star with his third studio album, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. That's kind of when I think J. Cole went to his stardom there. Of course, Born Sinner's good, and blanking on the name here.
Yeah, Sideline Story.
Yeah, yep. Of course, that's also another great album. That's actually the first track I heard. That was kind of my introduction, was Workout. My mom used to have it on the laptop, so I mean, I used to just play that. So that was great song still, and everything.
If I can remember, I feel like that song was even on the radio back in the day in like 2000.
It was big. And so I mean, when my official fandom started, we'll say it's 2014, so it would have been in 7th grade. Always knew the name, of course, like I said, like I previously mentioned, from Workout, but that gave me more of a consistent listen when Forest Hills Drive came out. Songs like GOMD, Tale of Two Cities,
Fire Squad,
No Role Models, of course. So for the song I chose with him, I chose No Role Models, I just previously mentioned. And it's very interesting with that, because had you asked me that question before October, before I went to Rolling Loud, I would have chosen probably Neighbors off For Your Eyes Only. But after seeing it live, it was different. It was in the rain. I wish I could relive that every day of my life.
Man, you can't write something better than that. It's such a good song, especially to see it perform like that. I feel like that's a real thing. Like, I feel like every time I go to a concert, there's like one song that I enjoyed before, but it just sticks with me so much more after seeing it performed live.
Yeah, no, obviously, I consistently listen to No Role Models and everything. It was one of my favorites, but I mean, that just like hearing it live and everything, it gave it that extra bump it needed. So
absolutely.
A couple interesting things with J. Cole. He would actually be my second longest tenured artist on the list that I have here. So, getting up there for me, coming up right on 10 years of listening to him. So, man,
I feel like that was like my number. A lot of these people have been like 10 years. Tyler, 2011, Chance actually might be one of the latest. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think about. That's like half our lives. I mean,
crazy.
Half our lives with these artists. But another like super interesting thing here with J. Cole, kind of how you were going with Gambino, how he has a second life almost. It was very, very cool when J. Cole went to play pro ball in Africa. He's getting Puma sneakers out. Shout out you for wearing those.
Yep, I hoop in those. I kind of like them there.
That was just, that's just, yeah. Can't get the Kobe's anymore. That's just tragic. But yeah, I mean, that's just, like you said, like just having, these two different influences, where they can go do whatever they want pretty much. But the quote I had from earlier, it was Rick Ross when he was rappers want to be ballers and ballers want to be rappers. That fit, because I mean, it's just the lifestyle they live. It's just they want to go do that. And I just feel like there's so many more just athletes becoming rappers now. Shout out AB, the Super Gremlin, Dame Dollar.
Yeah, I'd say Dame Dollar. He's definitely the first one I would think of. I mean, I think he's
definitely the biggest as well.
He's definitely the biggest. But I think in like 3 years, if you were like Damian Lillard, you could become a rapper full time just no more basketball. I think he would do it. I think, he's done all he can do in the NBA. If he won a championship, I think he'd be out. He just commit to the rap
get
game.
him to LA, get him to LA for Russ, man. So Bronny can get him one ring,
Oh yeah, I love the Brody, but man, it's been a rough one this year.
We'll keep it in music before I go in on him.
All right, I'll kick off my next artist here. My next artist I chose to mention in my top 5 favorite of all time is The Weeknd. The Weeknd, man, one of the biggest stars in music today. But before then, he was just Abel Tesfaye, just a homeless kid from Canada making music. Had such a dark, mysterious sound. Wasn't even showing his face when he first released his music. Was doing it all under the moniker The Weeknd. Nobody knew what that was. It was mysterious. I first got put on The Weeknd back in 2011, 2012-ish with Drake, Take Care. He was on Crew Love, of course, The Ride, many other songs. He had a big influence on the sound of Take Care. And I was, like I mentioned earlier, when you were talking about Drake, it's one of my favorite albums of all time. So naturally, I was drawn to The Weeknd, wanted to see more. And I saw a tweet about the song Wicked Games by The Weeknd. And I was like, okay, I'm going to check that one out. So glad I did. One of my favorite songs from him.
Have you seen the video? It's kind of a little like deep, or not deep, a little run into like the beef of not exactly beef, obviously, but between Drake and The Weeknd. And
yeah, is that the Trap Lord Ross one?
Yeah. It's just like, it's so, because Drake wanted him bad, he wanted the OVO XO, he wanted to bring it all together. Interesting question I had for you. Where do you think The Weeknd's career takes a different path? Like how different do you think his path is if he, signs to OVO?
Man, I think that's such an interesting question because they're both so big as it is now. It's tough. It's tough to say, I mean, no offense, that's kind of like Drake's done. There's so many artists that he's worked with that just haven't panned out. If you look
kind of like buries the artist
or Party Next Door, those artists they're big in their own right, but they're just not superstars.
They're not Drake. Yeah.
They're not as big as Drake. I mean, The Weeknd is as big as Drake or bigger because he's just straight pop at this point. You know what I mean?
Definitely. And that's why I think it's just such an interesting question. Does he end up buried with guys like that, or does he follow the same career path, destined for greatness?
I do think that he's just such a once in a generation talent that he would, I think him and Drake would just have more collaborations if that was the path he went through. But I do think that he would be as popular.
I mean, hopefully they can reconcile at some point, and
man, I'd love to see it. But man, why I became a fan of The Weeknd, his voice was just so beautiful. I mean, it's so good. He just had such a different sound with that dark R&B back in 2011. Nobody else is really doing that. I mean, he really inspired a lot of the next generation. If you look at like Bryson Tiller or even like more recent like Brent Faiyaz, I definitely think that The Weeknd probably had a huge influence on their sounds.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, but then I remember the first time I heard The Weeknd on the radio, I think it was probably Earned It. I was like, this is crazy. I mean, that is not too far away from like the sound he was going with at that time, still kind of dark R&B, but like it had that pop appeal. And I was like, okay, like this is kind of crazy. And then he has the songs like, The Hills and all those songs about Beauty Behind the Madness. So you're like, oh wait, this is different. He was like a pop star. If you look at Can't Feel My Face, crazy. He was just running the radio at that point. And that only was one up by what's come over the past couple of years. I mean, if you look at all the recent songs like Heartless, Blinding Lights, I mean, those songs have done crazy numbers on the radio. It's crazy to see. I mean, he's become one of the biggest stars in music, and I never would have expected that from the sound he was at in 2011 back then. I mean, I wasn't such a fan of Beauty Behind the Madness and Starboy, really, but they definitely had some of my favorite songs. If you look at songs like Acquainted and even Starboy, the title track, as well as Stargirl Interlude, one of my favorite Weeknd songs of all time, very underrated track. Those are some of my favorite songs. But the albums as a whole, they were too poppy for my taste, really. They were just all right. But then this next leg, when you look at After Hours and Dawn FM, these two have been such a unique experience, such a cinematic sound from these two. And he just announced recently that it's part of a trilogy. So the next album is supposed to be coming soon, called Afterlife, is what people are predicting the name's going to be, because he mentions that on one of the skits on the album on Dawn FM. I'm definitely here for this. I love this sound. How have you been liking this new sound from The Weeknd?
It's very interesting. He's just, I feel like he's kind of found the perfect mix from where he was at, this unassociated guy to becoming like the face of pop almost. I mean, I think it's a perfect mix for him, especially with the After Hours and Dawn FM. And like you were saying, even Beauty Behind the Madness, even though you didn't like them as much, there were still the hits on there, the
Definitely.
self-titled track on Starboy, amazing song.
Definitely.
Was it a Stargirl interlude? That's an amazing song as well.
Mm-hmm.
The Hills, that'll always be, that was another one of those, we're playing it, me and the homies are playing it all night. So I mean, that song's always going to have a special spot in the heart for me, of course. That's the one I'll associate with him.
Definitely. Great song. So the song I actually chose that I think best represents the Weeknd is Wicked Games. Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, it was the first song I heard by him. And I think it was just such a great look at his sound at that point, and really just showed what made him such a special artist at that early part of his career. It's off House of Balloons, his first mixtape. And it kind of tells a story of his relationship being pretty bad with like somebody that's like most likely like a stripper, prostitute, something along those lines, something kind of toxic, and I mean, me, I relate to that so much, always in strip club, man.
I mean, definitely. I got to pick, maybe we'll get that up on the gram one day, man.
No, I'm kidding. Obviously not really falling in love with strippers. So I don't really know what he's talking about, but love the song. And it's a really great.
It gives you the perspective into that. Though.
Exactly. I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm in the strip club making it
rain.
Yeah.
Once an artist can do that, give you that perspective into that, they're an amazing artist. I mean, they're doing their job.
Oh yeah. It makes me want to get my toxic bag a little bit sometimes, I love it. Him and Brent Faiyaz are some of the most toxic kings out there in Future, of course.
Yeah. You got to show love to the toxic king, the toxic
king. He is like the toxic rap king. Those two are like R&B, Brent and the Weeknd, but Future is the toxic king of rap.
Yeah.
Hey, he's an animal. All right, you ready for your next selection here?
Yeah, and we actually have the same artist. None of the previous ones are the same artist, so we'll go back and forth on this one. But a drum roll, please, for that. Our fifth artist will be Kanye West. I mean, kind of predictable. I feel like we're both going different ways into that, but yeah, I mean,
he's such a special artist. Maybe in my opinion, probably the greatest artist of all time. Just we're so lucky to be able to see what he's doing right now.
Definitely. And, with Kanye, starting off as a producer, I give a little more value with that, like ranking all time musically, because even like guys like Dr. Dre, he moves up a few spots on my list just because, what he did with NWA, he's producing songs for Tupac as well. It's just, once you can, do both of those very consistently and do it for other big artists, I mean, you're obviously, go up for greatest musician, go up spots for that.
Definitely such an impact on the game. Dr. Dre had, I mean, Kanye the same way, different ways, but
different ways, of course,
just the same amount of impact, probably. Kanye, he's been just such a star since he became a rapper. You know what I mean? With Through the Wire, he made such an initial impact, and then he got that Grammy off of The College Dropout. He paid his dues with his production career early on, but then, I mean, he really showed why he deserved to have a chance to become a rapper, and he's become a superstar ever since. He's really larger than life in many ways, especially in music.
I mean, definitely. With song, it's great on Graduation where his big brother, kind of where he's touching on that as well. It's just
definitely.
I mean, he's just destined to pop.
Definitely, he cares so. Like I mentioned with Gambino. Gambino cares so much about what he's making artistically. I think Kanye is so much the same way, especially when you look at like the album rollouts. I mean, it almost never comes out on time, but
never,
it's because he's putting so much effort into what he's making that you kind of just respect it.
Yeah, he wants to put out that perfect project for the fans, and that's always like a very interesting thing for me. Does it suck to not come out on time? Yes, of course. But would you rather have something that's rushed or something that, the artist feels they perfected?
Exactly. I mean, I would always love quality over quantity. And I mean, if we get one Kanye album every couple of years, but it's perfect, I'm happy with that.
Definitely. Let's get into, when we both became fans here. Do you want to start or would you like me to go?
I can start. So okay. I first became a fan of Kanye in probably about 2008, around 808s and Heartbreak. Every morning, my mom would wake me and my sister up and we would get ready for school and, all that. She'd have breakfast for us or whatever. And then take us over to our grandma's house, 2nd Avenue, where our namesake. But we would get dropped off at school from our aunt that stayed at our grandma's house. But while we were getting ready at home, my mom would always have VH1 playing in the morning, and there'd be different music videos playing. And some of the most memorable ones to me growing up were Heartless and Love Lockdown off 808s and Heartbreak. And I mean, those are just some of the classic Kanye songs from that era that really made an impression on me as a young person first getting interested in music. You know what I mean? What was your first interaction with Kanye?
So I mean, obviously, like you were saying, like you're always going to hear those tracks where they're on the radio or they're just playing wherever, you know, like for me it was like songs like Stronger and Gold Digger I'd always had heard, but like the biggest one for me would have been in 2013, and it was the 2K14 soundtrack. And I love that soundtrack. LeBron handpicked it. It's got all the lights on there, and that was definitely my like start into Kanye a little bit. I didn't really I guess become like a fan of Kanye till about 2016 though, after The Life of Pablo, and then I started revisiting back, you know. So
exactly. I mean, that's like crazy. Like I'm sitting like 2016, but I mean, you're also like what, 14 then?
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I
and
mean?
I do think he has a more mature sound. I would have been 15 in 2016.
Okay.
He does have like a more mature sound. You know, it doesn't sound as, you know, some of his tracks don't sound as good whenever you're a little bit younger.
Yeah,
Funny enough,
true.
though, whenever I was listening to Kanye, you know, kind of giving me a little introduction, I get a shout out 2 Chainz here. You know, that was a big guy back in my discography back then.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so Birthday Song Kanye was featured on, and
Different.
Mercy, of course. So
Shout
that
out
was kind
Chainz.
of, you know, along with my introduction to Kanye from 2K. So
Oh yeah, that's definitely a great introduction story for Kanye. And then, you know, what about Kanye makes you such a fan of his music?
I mean, he just has such a great discography. You know, he has different sounds, you know, from his first trilogy to, you know, kind of where he switches everything up with 808s, and then he kind of puts it all together with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy,
Definitely.
which in my opinion is probably the greatest rap album of our generation, you know. So
Man,
I
don't
mean,
get
it's easy to, you know, fall in love with and become one of your favorites when he's just, you know, has so much quality out there, you know.
definitely don't want to give anything away about, you know, future episodes, you know, if we do an album ranking, but I mean, I think it's pretty obvious anybody's heard it. That's one of the best albums, especially of the 2010s in rap music.
Definitely. How about you?
I mean, I think as I got older and started like listening to music more than just like hearing music, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was kind of my thing, like before I became a Kanye fan. Sorry to interrupt, but
No, it's all good. I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, the difference between listening and hearing music, Kanye was such a influential part of that because Kanye put so much detail in the production, especially of his music, that I really like was thinking about these samples and the beats and the production. I was like, oh my God, this is different. He's just one of the best to do it, especially like you mentioned with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I mean, that's one of the greatest albums of all time, hearing those different samples and the different production. And I mean, obviously the great rapping makes it one of the best albums. And
yeah,
that's the album
definitely.
that definitely cemented me as like, okay, this is one of my favorite rappers. And I mean, he always had those hits, you know what I mean? Like there's every album has that Kanye hit that like everybody knows. When we go from like Gold Digger to Stronger to Power, you know. So I think he's just such a part of the culture. And I mean, his besides that, his personality is just so unique. I mean, he's love him or hate him, you got to admit that man is confident, so confident in himself that he's going to put out. He's a genius, you know. He's doing whatever. That kind of actually takes me to the song I chose, which is actually Saint Pablo off of The Life of Pablo. Life of Pablo is such a special album to me because it kind of took all those sounds that he was working with early in his career with the samples and soulful samples from College Dropout and, you know, the different production later on with like Yeezus even, puts that together for The Life of Pablo. One of my favorite songs being Saint Pablo, with Sampha. Sampha's vocals on that song are beautiful. That chorus is crazy, but Kanye's rapping is so good. He's just talking about kind of where he's at in his life and the different problems he has going on. But the line that sticks with me, I know I'm the most influential. That time cover was just confirmation. This generation's closest thing to Einstein. So don't worry about me. I'm fine. I mean,
Yeah,
that just
that's
shows
just.
Kanye. He's so confident in himself that he's a genius.
I mean, and he's kind of same thing with Travis, but I mean, even taking that level past, you know, Travis doesn't have, you know, his own shoe, you know, or his own brands here. Like Kanye's I mean, kind of the one who introduced that a little bit. And
Definitely.
unfortunately, I do think it's, played a little bit of a part, the way he acts now. Cause I mean, that's gotta be like a stressful life, it's just, you're
Definitely.
designing shoes, designing all these products. And I mean, you also have a music career as well. So
Definitely. And I mean, especially at that point, that was when in that same song, he talks about all the debt he's in.
mhm.
And if you look at him now, it's only
He's a
just
billionaire.
over 5 years later, he's a billionaire. He was like $53 million.
So many
debt.
times over too. I mean, it's not just, he just is right at $1 billion. He is
No, it's crazy.
at least 5 or 6 times over a billionaire.
It's so exactly, you know what I mean? Like he just is going through so much at that point that like you almost sympathize with him. Like even if you don't like him, you're like, wow, okay, like this man is in more debt than I can imagine. And he is in the public eye all day. Every move he makes is under a microscope. You know what I mean? Like I can definitely understand why some people wouldn't like Kanye because he is, he does definitely say some crazy things, especially, after this time. But he's under so much pressure that, you
I mean, yeah, definitely you just respected as one of the biggest geniuses in music or in the world, honestly.
Definitely.
Moving on to my song, I chose this song just perfectly explains Kanye for me. Can't Tell Me Nothing, it's just
great song.
I mean, I don't really even need to go too much in depth. I mean, that's Kanye's attitude there,
Man,
and even
Drake do that at that Hoover concert.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Even like you said, I mean, 10 years before, I mean, roughly 10 years, well, it's about 8 years actually, where he's dropping the bars where he's in debt. But the first line on Can't Tell Me Nothing, it's wait till I get my money, right? So
Man,
it's just,
and he got it right. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for our top 5 artist lists. We really just wanted to give you guys an idea of, who we listen to, who are some of our favorites, just so you can kind of get an idea of how we're going to talk about artists moving forward. And, what we may or may not like, if you have something you'd love for us to listen to, we could give our reaction to. Please let us know on our Instagram comments or DMs, our YouTube comments. We'd love to listen to anything that people want us to hear. Moving forward, we kind of wanted to just discuss some of the latest news in the rap game. First off, today, actually, the day that we're recording, Thursday, it's Thursday, January 20th. Complex just named their 2021 Best Rapper Alive as Tyler, the Creator. What do you think about that?
It's very interesting with Tyler. I'm not the biggest Tyler fan, but I can respect the pick. I mean, just because, I don't listen to his album as much or, as much as, a listener like you would. But I mean, he's just at that level, where you have to respect it. I definitely respect the pick. And I mean, I don't really have an argument with it because I believe it's true. It's just, maybe not my cup of tea, but when an artist is so good that you just have to respect it. I mean, you do,
Definitely. And I mean, I think it's just so interesting about how he won the Grammy for Rap Album of the Year with Igor, which he definitely would not consider a rap album. And I personally would not either. And now he's nominated again with Call Me If You Get Lost, but he came back with the raps on this album. He
definitely
adventured away from that sound and kind of explored something new. But now he's back to, what made him popular in the first place. Not saying he wasn't popular with the other sound, because he absolutely was, even more so in many cases.
And it just shows how talented he is, making the best rapper alive when he can be like so multifaceted, he can do all these other things. So.
Absolutely. Quickly, I'll mention the 3 honorable mentions on the Complex list, which were J. Cole, Kanye, and Makami. What do you think about those honorable mentions?
I mean, like I said, I'm just in agreement. I'm such a big stand for Complex. I feel like they get a lot of these picks correctly. I feel like if I were to make an artist, it would be an argument against Tyler not being the greatest rapper alive. It'd be for Cole or Kanye. So I mean,
yeah, I definitely think that's fair. I mean, those two had 2 of the biggest albums of the year, also nominated for the Grammys this year. Huge pop appeal on those as well. Everybody knows those albums. But the one that really surprised me was Makami. I mean, that's such an underground artist. Are you familiar with him?
A little bit, I've listened a little bit, but I also love when Complex does that. They give you kind of a less unconventional answer as well. So
I agree, especially they don't necessarily with these lists always go for the most popular answer. It'd be easy to say, oh, it's Drake, Kanye, J. Cole, and Tyler. Those are 4 of the biggest artists. I mean, they could be it's like when people talk about the NBA MVP, it could be LeBron every year. I mean, people get tired of that. So it's great to see one of those underground artists that deserves a shout out. I mean, I don't really think Makami would care about that.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna, argue with being on there or anything. So, but I mean, it is great. That's why, one of the things I like about Complex, they always bring in, someone you wouldn't expect. So, or a few people you wouldn't expect. So.
Definitely. I mean, even if you look back at a couple of years, I think it was 2019, they put Freddie Gibbs in the honorable mentions, and I was pretty happy with that because I mean, Freddie's one of my favorite rappers, and he definitely deserves a shout out from those some of those amazing albums he's worked on.
Yeah, and even as a fan, it's good to see one of your favorite artists get put into consideration for things like that. So
definitely.
Shout out Complex, shout out Makami. So
shout out. All right, moving on to the next piece of news here. Brockhampton breaks up. What was your first thought when you read the news that Brockhampton broke up?
I think it was a little bit overdue. I mean, you could tell that the writing was on the wall, with so many like solo albums from him, from different artists throughout the group. And I mean, I just talking with you about it the other day. It's just kind of like after Amir Van left the group, it's just kind of the writing's been on the wall.
Yeah, as sad as it is, I mean, I think it's time. I mean, they had such a legendary run. I mean, those Saturation mixtapes or albums were crazy in 2017 or 18.
I mean, and they're all so close together. It's like the even crazier part with it. I think it's a 6 or 7 month window that all three came out. So
yeah, it is crazy. I mean, I know Saturation 2 came out in August. That was the first project I heard from them. And then 3 came out in December, I believe. So I mean, those two are very close. But I mean, they have so many people in the group that I was like, okay, it makes sense that they're able to produce so much music. I mean, at that point, they had like 7 vocal performers, I believe. So it was crazy. But I mean, Amir was my favorite member of Brockhampton. So to see him go, it was pretty tough. I mean, obviously I understand why they had to make that call. But it definitely sucked to see. And I mean, their sound definitely evolved in a different direction than it was in the Saturation series with Iridescence and, Ginger and now Roadrunner. I think Roadrunner was a great album for them to end on. It was
I was very impressed with Roadrunner. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, honestly.
Same. I didn't love Iridescence, and then I liked Ginger more than Iridescence, but Roadrunner was probably the fourth.
I just kind of feel like with Saturation, that was just like such like kind of like a lightning in a bottle. I'll look up when the first Saturation came out to the third. I want to get like an exact time period here for
I want to say the first one came out in like maybe July or June.
June 9th, 2017. And then the third one came out. Let's see here. December 15th, 2017. So I mean, you're right at a 7-month span there. That's just
pretty crazy. A lot of work to get done. I mean, and they did such unique work with those projects. I mean, great videos.
I love the Saturation videos are amazing. They're some of my favorites in rap.
Crazy.
So you'd say Amir what is your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, all time I would say Amir was my favorite. I mean, I think he was just technically a great rapper. I mean, also you can make the argument for Don McLennan being a great technical rapper.
That would be my pick there for
yeah. I would not be mad at that. I ordered the box set when that first came out back in the Saturation days. And it came with a trading card of one of the members. And I was like, please do not let me get somebody behind the scenes. I want one of the rappers. I wanted Amir. I got Dom and I was like, okay, like that was one of my top choices. Yeah. So I was pretty happy with that. I also love Matt Champion though. I mean, Matt Champion, I think he's gonna have a great career post Brockhampton as well. Obviously Kevin Abstract.
Yeah, Kevin Abstract. I think they can all have, great careers still. So
definitely. I mean, I saw somebody, I believe it was my friend Levi. I think he's something about Bareface. Bareface could have a great career. I mean, that man is just such a great singer that I think he could have pop appeal depending on who he's working with.
Kind of like back to, whenever I was saying, you can see all these like AAU teams from like 2014 that's got, all these players on it. So it could end up being one of those things. I do think it's, I don't think it was the worst move ever for the group to break up and, all take on kind of these solo roles.
No, I agree. I definitely think they can shine in their own lanes soon here. The crazy thing was I just saw a YouTube video talking about how the breakup was happening, everything obviously, but it mentioned how young they were. Kevin Abstract's like 24 or 25. He's had such a great
career
already.
In his prime here. Yeah,
exactly. He's such a great career already with the group. And I mean, so much potential for solo material to come soon. So excited to see what's next for them.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get some reviews out there once those start dropping.
Definitely. Our next piece of news here, Ye and The Game dropped their song Easy. What do you think about this song?
It's a hit. I mean,
Okay.
what else would you expect from The Game and Kanye? You knew something was coming. You just didn't know when or like how something was coming with the Pete Davidson bar. What's he?
God save me from that crash, just so I could beat Pete Davidson's ass. Only Kanye would say something like that. Obviously, nobody else is really going to call it Pete Davidson, but
I love Kanye's. I love Kanye's verse. From buying the house across the street to the top ramen bar. That was just.
It was a great track. But the Pete Davidson line, as much as I loved it, it really didn't fit the flow of the song that well. I was like, oh,
but anything he's gonna say about it though is gonna pop,
Oh, it definitely popped.
So I respect it. It definitely, like you said, a little bit. It didn't sound the best, but
but it's Kanye, so you gotta respect it.
Yeah, definitely.
But the question was, that verse P, or was it not P?
That was a P verse.
That was a P verse. I'll agree. Takes us to our next point here. Gunna. This man is running social media. He's running the culture right now.
Yes.
Not P. I didn't even know what it meant for a couple of days here. I just kept seeing the P emoji.
Here's pushing P. That's all it means.
Definitely pushing P. This podcast, pushing P. Gunna outsells The Weeknd. Definitely P.
Definitely.
Definitely P. What do you think about that? Would you have predicted that?
I wouldn't have predicted it, especially I feel like DS4 just kind of came out of nowhere, like, hey, it's dropping this Friday. Whereas The Weeknd, once The Weeknd, he had his little clip that he put out. When was your introduction to Gunna?
Man, my introduction to Gunna might have been off Drip Too Hard. Probably.
Drip Too Hard? Okay. Let me see. He had sold out dates with Lil Baby. Him and Lil Baby, they're blossoming right now.
It was definitely one of those him and Lil Baby collabs. And I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of Gunna, but I definitely respect the he's putting up. If you can compete with The Weeknd, although The Weeknd wasn't doing a lot of physical numbers with this album, I definitely respect that he was able to beat out The Weeknd. He's obviously done a lot of huge pop hits with Drip Too Hard, Sold Out Dates, all these songs.
Yeah, it's great to see someone outsell The Weeknd, honestly. Especially someone like Gunna. It was pretty unexpected, honestly.
Definitely.
He's widening the gap too, like second week. So that's great to see,
Yeah, pretty crazy.
We're pushing P, we're pushing P for him.
Pushing P. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for a lot of the news that happened in rap this past week. Anything else you want to touch on?
Not that I can think of right now. We'll have another episode out next week if I can think of anything.
Definitely. All right. Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning into our first episode. We're really excited about what's to come for this podcast. Really hoping you guys will be there for us this whole journey. Let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about. Hit our DMs on Instagram or Twitter at Second Avenue Pod. Let us know what you think about today's episode. Let us know about anything you want to talk about.
Any ideas? We are taking questions as well. If you guys have any questions to comment down, we can get a little mailbox of those and answer the fans' questions, of course. So
definitely would love to do a little Q&A here. If you guys want to leave a comment on our Instagram post today, that would be great. We'll see you guys next Monday. Right. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Be on the lookout next Monday. We'll have another one out.
Sounds good. See you guys later.